End quote, June 1942. The vast Pacific Ocean. A tiny atoll named Midway becomes the stage for one of the most decisive naval battles in history. This is the story of the Battle of Midway, a clash that would change the course of World War II in the Pacific. Midway Atoll, located roughly halfway between Asia and North America, was a strategic outpost for the United States. Control of Midway meant control of the Central Pacific. For Japan, capturing Midway was part of a grand plan to expand their empire and eliminate the U.S. Navy as a threat. But what the Japanese didn't know was that the Americans had cracked their secret codes. The U.S. Navy was ready, and they were waiting. End quote. On one side, the Imperial Japanese Navy, led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. Their fleet was massive, with 4 aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, supported by battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. The Japanese were confident, riding high on their earlier victories at Pearl Harbor and the Coral Sea. On the other side, the United States Navy, commanded by Admiral Chester W. Nimitz. Though outnumbered, the Americans had 3 aircraft carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown, along with a handful of cruisers and destroyers. But their greatest advantage was intelligence. They knew the Japanese plan, and they were prepared to strike. The Battle of Midway was fought primarily in the air and at sea. The Japanese relied on their formidable Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters and Nakajima B5N torpedo bombers. The Americans, meanwhile, deployed Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers and Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters. Both sides also used submarines for reconnaissance and attacks, though their role in this battle was limited. But the real stars of the battle were the aircraft carriers. These floating airbases allowed both sides to project power across vast distances, turning the Pacific into a battlefield unlike any other. End quote. The battle began on June 4, 1942, with a Japanese air raid on Midway Island. The U.S. forces, however, were ready. American bombers launched a counterattack, but their initial strikes were disorganized and ineffective. The Japanese, confident in their superiority, prepared to launch a second wave. But then, everything changed. At 10:22 a.m., American dive bombers from the Enterprise and Yorktown caught the Japanese carriers by surprise. In a matter of minutes, 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, were engulfed in flames. The 4th carrier, Hiryu, managed to launch a counterattack, severely damaging the Yorktown. But by the end of the day, Hiryu too was sunk. The Japanese fleet, now crippled, was forced to retreat. The Americans had achieved a stunning victory. The Battle of Midway was a decisive victory for the United States. The Japanese lost 4 aircraft carriers, a heavy cruiser, and over 3,000 men, including many of their most experienced pilots. The Americans, while suffering losses of their own, including the Yorktown, had dealt a devastating blow to the Japanese Navy. But the impact of Midway went beyond the immediate losses. It marked the turning point in the Pacific War. The Japanese, once on the offensive, were now forced onto the defensive. The United States, on the other hand, gained the initiative, setting the stage for future victories at Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. The Battle of Midway is remembered not just for its strategic importance, but for the courage and sacrifice of those who fought. It was a battle won not just by superior firepower, but by intelligence, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Today, Midway Atoll stands as a reminder of the pivotal moments that shape history, and of the bravery of those who fought to secure a better future. The Battle of Midway was more than a military victory. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and a turning point that changed the course of a war, and the world. End quote.